Okay, with NiCads, as I mentioned, one of the problems is the thermal runaway. Not the thermal runway, the thermal run-away. So the cellophane in the separator keeps oxygen that is generated from overcharging from positive plate. Let me try this again. The cellophane in the separator keeps oxygen that is generated from overcharging from reaching the positive plate. From the positive plate to reaching the negative. There we go. Oxygen in the positive can't get to the negative. Don't want that. That's the cellophane. If you don't know what cellophane is, that's the stuff your mom puts over your food. So, right, so the oxygen doesn't get over to the wrong plate. But oxygen reaching the negative plate recombines with cadmium and creates heat. Well, this heat creates oxygen. This oxygen then creates heat. Heat causes breakdown of the separator, which causes more oxygen. Heat causes breakdown of separators, lowers internal resistance. This allows more current to flow, more heat, more gas, runaway, or sometimes called vicious cycling. I'll write that down.
So is it kind of like a nuclear meltdown?
Well, it's kind of like a 2-year-old meltdown, if you ask me.
But
pretty much. Somewhere between a 2-year-old.
Vicious cycling, also how Neil Armstrong won.
Didn't he cheat?
Yes. That comes up in 2 weeks from now. It plays a part in what we're doing, so it's funny. So I don't know. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. So vicious cycling. All right, vicious cycling. So, all right. This can be caused from what's gets it going.
Oxygen from the positive plate.
Well, yeah, but what gets that going, and that's where we have to get to. So vicious cycling can be caused this takes forever sometimes. Caused by overuse of starter. So the scenario would be your dad. He wouldn't do it though because he's a great pilot. But in his King Air, right? If you had a bunch of trips between say here and SAC Executive, so if you're not familiar by air, this and Sacramento Executive are even in my plane is less than 5 minutes. So you got a King Air and you're moving from here to there. So you have passengers. You'd stop here, shut down an engine. Or engines, load your passengers, starter to do it, use the battery to start the engine. You've had a big discharge of the battery. Now because you've had a big discharge, it's being charged through what process? Constant current or constant potential?
constant
Potential. So that means the current will go
Way up.
because the battery was used to start the engine. So you take off, you get to executive, and you shut down. So you had a big discharge, a big charge. Big charge is heat. You stop over there, you shut down, you repeat the process, you come back over here, shut down, repeat the process. So overuse of the starter is what's happening. That will cause the thermal runaway. So a lot of amps, a lot of amps, a lot of amps, a lot of amps in a very short period of time. So you got to be careful of that.
For 16 grand, I've never been able to use
Overuse
that.
causes heat. Repeated starts in short period. Charging too rapidly when battery is warm. NiCad, they have temp gauges, or at least a warning system. And a disconnect source. Or I should just put this.
Would that be kind of more on the pilot then to see if their battery isn't overheating and disconnect it? Would they disconnect it during flight?
Oh yeah, you don't want thermal runaway. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Well,
So-
the generator then would be able to take over for that still.
Sure.
Yes.
Going.
So you have to land and then what do a constant voltage like or well I guess
At that point, I would take the battery out and have it serviced.
that's kind of like a
I would call that an unairworthy aircraft now and take the battery out. Disconnect your charging source. Yeah.
Usually there's some kind of PDA, right? Push button enunciator for stuff like this. You'll have some big button that lights up and it's
I
like,
would
okay,
imagine so.
and you hit the button and it disconnects.
Yeah. Yeah, you wouldn't just leave it to a gauge, you know. It's like, oh, I should have looked at that an hour ago. Usually enough to stop. Usually enough to stop runaway. Actually, I should give you the actual answer. The actual answer is whatever it says in the pilot operating handbook. You're never, and it's a nice thing about aviation, you're never left to like, well, now what do I do? It's in the manual. The manual has to be in the airplane. Professional pilots are trained in what to do. They don't ever need to look this stuff up. I mean, they will, obviously, but this is instilled in them. They know what to do. In emergency procedures and newer POHs, they all have bolded sections, and you're expected to memorize the bolded sections. It's committed to memory. And so, yeah, professional pilots, they know it. There's no guessing. Well, now what do I do? I forgot. I had this class. Boy, it's been years since I had this class. They're skilled. All right. Let's see. Voltage ratings. We'll hit voltage ratings real quick here.
Can't charging it with a low electrolyte level also cause thermal runaway?
Oh, yeah. Also, if the electrolyte level is really too low when you start your charging, yeah, that's a problem.
oh well so then so how do you know if it's too low?
You use it.
Well
I know. The manual doesn't say what is too low, but it does say, if I'm not mistaken, if the voltage instantly goes to above 1.5,
yeah.
that you add X number of water.
Yeah, ionize water immediately.
I remember now.
Yep. Again, but that's one of those things that's nice to know. You know, you don't want to go, 1.2, 1.2, 1.5. That's weird. Lunchtime, Sure, it'll be fine when I get back from lunch. All right, voltage ratings. We pretty much already talked about that. According to my notes here, the OCV is open circuit voltage is 1.28, roughly 1.28 volts. Some variation with temp. Some variation with temp, some variation with time. Oh, I'll put that. Move this up.
Per cell, right? 1.2.
Yeah. Some variation with temp and time. One of the things I didn't mention about lead acid batteries is that definitely want to look at the instructions for how long you can store them. You cannot store them dead, and you can't store them indefinitely. Well, nothing can be indefinite, but you cannot store a lead acid battery dead because it gets lead sulfation, then it's just bad. And you can't store them very long uncharged because they slowly drain out, just the chemical process, and they go dead over time. Thus, all the batteries that were purchased for this place, they all went dead, sitting in a box on a shelf, and are unrepairable. I spent an entire semester trying to just salvage some, and I almost had one salvaged, but it just didn't.
So,
Tried, but it died.
just out of curiosity, if a pilot wanted to replace their own battery of their non-AMP, would they be able to do so? Yes or no?
Yes, I'm pretty sure. Where's the answer?
Preventative maintenance.
You got it. Is it preventative maintenance? Yes.
I think you could almost call it needed preventative maintenance.
Yeah.
Change the cylinder.
Oops. Not what I wanted to write.
Scheduled maintenance.
Some variation of time and temp. Let's see.
Fix the strike on my own.
1.4 volts immediately after charging.
So once you disconnect it, it'll drop from 1.5 to 1.4.
Yep. And then we'll settle to 1.35 to 1.28. The CCV is 1.2 to 1.25. And the CCV remains nearly constant until battery is almost completely discharged. Let's see. Amp hour rating, not that it's important. I had most of these 24 batteries are somewhere up to 80 amp hours. Internal resistance is very low. Operating temp range is much wider. Maintenance. A lot of the maintenance is almost nearly identical anymore to NiCad batteries. Like I said before, I'm sorry, lead acid. Lead acid before, it was just run it till it quit, buy a new one. But NiCads were not that way. They, because they were found in jets, turbines, expensive aircraft, where they had maintenance procedures that were monitored to a much tighter control, I should say, than just an AMP or IA working out of the back of their Buick. That's a fact, sorry. That the batteries were maintained per the instructions for continued airworthiness because they're so dang expensive. People were watching them, so like I said, my shop would take care of them. They would get their own logbooks, just like the airframe had a logbook, the engine had a logbook, props had a logbook, and the battery had a logbook. So that would come with it. And so at very specific intervals, they would remove it from the airplane, send it interval cycles, calendar time, or hours. They would send it off to us or battery shop, and we would do the full maintenance per the manual on it, which would be a measured discharge. All the way down to then put the grounding straps on it, go all the way to 0 volts, and clean it, disassemble, clean, repair, put it back together, recharge. So yeah, otherwise I have inspection is similar to lead acid, visual inspection, cracks, leaks, corrosion, distortion, vent system. You haven't looked back in our stack of batteries that we're giving to you guys, but let's see, maintenance. I'm just going to write some quick notes that might be of some interest. Leaks may show as white powder. In fact, what you're really going to get on these batteries is, this is a very clean, nice looking battery. See these things right here? What are those? Those are your grounding straps. So they're just spring steel, stainless steel. You stick them in there and you pop them between the lugs, and that will discharge the battery all the way down to 0. If you put one on there and then you want to take it off a few minutes later, don't. They're really freaking hot. Oops. So, but this is a super clean battery. Normally you see white powder built up, spots here and there around it. And that white powder is the electrolyte. It's dried out. Your banana powder, if you will. So you collect that stuff, mix it with water, and that's your center of your Hydrox cookie.
So on lead acid batteries, like automotive, my father's been wanting us to use battery protector.
Yep, battery protector, terminal spray, yeah.
Is that?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe in it. I think some people have said like petroleum jelly works, Vaseline, that kind of stuff.
What's the battery protector spray do?
I've seen about for corroding.
Yeah.
It's usually like a red spray.
Red, yeah, it's a red
Yeah,
spray.
that's what I've seen. What is it? Like
I don't know what it is. It's just
Red.
red stuff?
red stuff. It's what it is. All right. What do we clean up spills with?
Sodium bicarbonate. But in the NiCad, since it's basic, boric acid, yeah.
Clean spills with acid.
Boring.
So boric acid, lemon juice.
Where do you get boric acid?
I was just going to say I have no idea what boric acid is or where to get it. So it's bor, B-O-R.
Vinegar. Can you just pour vinegar, white vinegar?
Boric acid, boric acid, vinegar.
It's roach killer.
Yeah.
You can use it as powdered roach killer.
Lemon juice.
Damn. Probably be like eating salad.
I know. Just throw your salad on it. I love this one. 3% solution of acidic acid.
Unspecified.
You just run down to the hardware store and get that.
Well, in a pinch, just grab a lead acid battery and throw it at it. That's right there.
Isn't acetic acid what they put in soda? I think it is, or is that a different acid?
Just throw your stuff.
I don't know. All right, let's see. Some of this stuff is rather obvious that I wrote down that I probably don't need to, I'll mention it. But if a cell has leaked, you have to take the entire battery apart, take all of the cells out, and clean it. And getting those cells out sometimes is rather tricky. They're smashed in there pretty hard, so you got to kind of pry them out. Let's see. Check torque of the connecting straps. Obviously, we check torque of everything. State of charge. How do we determine the state of charge?
It's your discharge test.
Discharging it at a set current rate, and then taking the time that it takes.
State of charge can only be determined by discharging battery and what do I want to say? Measuring amp hours. So in other words, you have a battery, a NiCad, and you think, I don't know if it's charged or not. So before I put it in the plane, I should check if it's fully charged. So you put a load on it and you completely discharge it, and you measure how many amps it took. Amps
It was at 95%.
times time equals the amp hours. So if it was a 24 amp hour battery and I put a load on it that could take 24 amps out of it and it took an hour, then it was
Fully charged.
a good battery and you could have put it in the airplane.
Sweet.
That is the only way you can tell. There are some things in the manual that talk about kind of a quicker check, partial discharge and such, but really the only way to be absolutely certain is to do a complete and total discharge, then say, yep, that was a good battery. Would have been
If
fine.
you throw it on the charger on a constant voltage charger and
Just recharge it like it was dead?
is it not possible to do that? Did I miss something?
You could, yeah. Yeah, as long as the manual allows you to do it and says, hey, if you're unsure, then just go ahead and put on a charger at 2.4 amps and leave it there until it's 1.5 volts per cell. Check your water level and you can consider it, but it still leaves that ambiguity, so I'm going to say no. Yeah.
Do NiCads go bad, for lack of a better term, like lead acids if you leave them?
No. So that's my other point here. You can leave a fully charged or dead NiCad battery on the shelf for a very long time. Let me see.
You just have a bunch of 95% charged, 50% charged, 5% charged.
Do I have it on here?
Just have them separate from each other.
Yeah, sure. They kind of lose a little bit of charge over time. NiCads need to be reconditioned about every 1,500 hours. Cells get out of balance from the aircraft's constant voltage charger. All right, so
Well, and also the memory part that you were talking about too might come into effect with that if you just leave it discharged.
I don't know about that. They prefer a constant current charge. So NiCads like a constant current charge. What's it going to get in the airplane?
Constant voltage.
Constant voltage. Does it like that?
Not as much.
No, that causes the cells to get out of balance, meaning one has more charge than the other, and then that creates a problem. It creates different, you get different charge rates, different temperatures. I do have memory effect is something that could happen there. Like I said, I don't have a lot of information about that. So let me see. Current rates. NiCad batteries can be stored charged or discharged with no problem. NiCad batteries can store for 6 months without a loss of power. So up to 6 months with no power loss.
So the main way to kind of destroy them is to just overcharge them.
Or drop them.
Or drop them. I mean, besides physically, like, abusing them.
Well, yeah, and constant voltage charging without maintenance. So a lot of short flights, a lot of starts and stops. So we have say we had a turbine engine here that we were going to run here at the school. What kind of battery would we want to put on that turbine
A
engine?
NiCad.
We want a NiCad?
You need a NiCad for it because it's a turbine. It needs
You
to
don't-
spool up to 10%.
You don't need an iCAD, but
Wouldn't it be?
I would not want a NiCad on a school engine. Why? You'll hear it when they get into running turbines, or when you get into it in second year. You will hear it start, run for a minute, shut down. Next group, start, run for a minute, shut down. Start, run, shut down.
Oh, you get a thermal runaway much easier.
Yeah, that's very abusive. I would prefer to have just a very large lead acid battery hooked to a ground power unit that ran off of ground power. But a NiCad, I think, would be the wrong thing to have. Although we do have some, and we can use them. So, all right, I think I've covered most of the stuff I needed to cover just in time. But let's make sure. All right.